I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the show.
All right, the cat's out of the bag. You saw the episode name. You know it's the 25 Creedmoor new for 2025. And if you're serious about getting into the 25 Creedmoor game, we've got a full list of partners available to you at Hornady.com/25CM. That's going to have all of our reamer, barrel, rifle, and custom builders that are supporting the 25 Creedmoor. Now we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, and I've got a full table in the studio today, right back in the corner, Jayden Quinlan, Senior Ballistician, and then across the table, Assistant Director of Engineering, Joe Thielen, and special guest, Team Hornady shooter, two-time PRS winner, Austin Orgain. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
You bet.
Good to
Glad
be
to
here,
be here,
Seth.
Yeah, and special thanks to Austin for coming up here, obviously running custom rifle barrels, among many other things that he's got going on. Busy dude, but carved the time to come up here to talk about something that's pretty cool that we don't normally do, which is mid-year launches, but the time was right for this one. This is a 25 for 25, a 25 cal in 2025. And what better time to launch the 25 Creedmoor than right now? It is coming up into what I call PRS season, or coming into match season, although there's matches going on really all the time. For those of us that live in the plains and in the Midwest, you don't get to shoot very much when there's snow on the ground. So right now, there's less snow on the ground and there's more matches going on. And I want to talk about the 25 Creedmoor and then 25 as a whole. Kind of a 30,000-foot view of why the 25, because I'm a 25 cal purist. 257 Roberts is all a guy needs, right? I'm building one right now, although it's an actually improved version with a much faster twist rate. But why the 25? And there's some pretty small advantages from me, the layman, looking at it. You know, it looks kind of like minutia, but for the demanding competitor like Austin, or for the guy that just likes 25s, it's pretty darn cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start with why the 25. You know, the 25 kind of lived dormant for a lot of years. I mean, you saw no development in the world of 25 up until, you know, I don't know what year it was. Maybe you guys remember. There was a company that is no more, as I understand it, but they had the 131 Blackjack. And
the bullet.
It would have been somewhere around 2016, 2017, something like that, whenever the Blackjack started coming out.
Okay.
Started surfacing. Maybe early 18. I can't remember exactly, but it's that time frame.
So you've got the PRS in full force, and it became hyper competitive. The average competitor of the time, 2018, would have been winning matches in 2013 and 14 time frame, just because the level of competency has increased so much. So then people start looking at, well, what knobs can I turn to get a little bit better? One hit, one impact can separate you from first or second.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that.
Yeah. So why the 25 cal? You see it sitting dormant for decades, and then you see, okay, the 131 Blackjack kind of getting pretty darn popular. If I remember right, it came out swinging.
Well, that was the only, well, to my knowledge, was one of the very few, if not the only, what we would consider a longer range target bullet for 25. There just wasn't anything that existed. They were hunting cartridges before that, 25-06, 257 Robert, all short ogives, 1 in 10 twist, short ogives, more case.
Yep.
They were built for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure. And I think that was kind of the spark that the 25 cal needed. A couple of Oklahoma guys said, "Hey, look, we've got this. You know, we know the 6mm is good. We know the 6.5 is good, and we got a 25 in between with no bullet offerings. You know, so they designed a bullet and kind of rolled out a bullet and made that a viable cartridge for competition shooting."
Well, it definitely got popular.
Yeah, I think you see a natural historical progression too, because you see the craze of 6.5, right? Like when Creedmoor really took off in the sport, you saw 6.5 Creedmoors at it was the majority cartridge at every PRS match, probably 2012, 13 through maybe 14, 15. And around that time, those middle teen years, you start to see the shift to 6mm.
Mm-hmm.
because of that lighter recoil,
Yeah.
better wind, all that kind of stuff. So you see that progression, and then everybody goes 6mm, like an overcompensation almost. Well, then guys start to figure out, oh wow, like 6 Creeds burn barrels out pretty quick, and I'm swapping multiple barrels a year to make it through all these matches. So then you kind of see the pendulum start to swing back, and I think that's where 25 really timed itself well.
Yeah, I think so. One thing, at least as far as what I looked at whenever I got started and was looking for, that edge, right, to that competitive edge, something that I felt like that would give me something over somebody. When I first started, a lot of guys were still running 6.5 Creed, 6.5 .47, and they were running the 140 class bullets. Well, if you looked at it ballistically, your 6mm was either equal or slightly better than your 140 class bullets and in less recoil. So your highly competitive guys that looked at barrels as expendable, right? We didn't really care if we burned 3 barrels out a year because we're trying to compete at the highest level. So we started going more towards 6mm. Well, then you start seeing the ultra efficient high BC 6.5 stuff come out, your 150 class bullets. Well, now all of a sudden your 6.5s are like, ooh, man, I don't have to be as exact on my wind calls, or the wind switches don't seem to matter as much in this mid-range 700-800 yard stuff. And then that's where you start seeing the 25 cal kind of bridge that gap in between. You still have a pretty heavy a heavy for class bullet with a really high efficiency, less recoil than a 6.5, a little more than a 6mm. I always call it the Goldilocks area, right? Because it's a manageable recoil that you can still spot your short range shots, your 300-400 yard shots. But you can now get the availability of these high BC bullets that will compete ballistically with the 6.5s.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I've just got some rough numbers here. It's a good time to introduce these numbers, and we'll continue the conversation after this tangent here. But this is very much a Goldilocks scenario, and you can see it just laid out really, really simply when you look at bullet drop and wind for a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and I did a recoil, foot-pounds of recoil calculation. So you have the 6.5 Creedmoor as the golden standard, right? That is, I'm going to use it in that as the measuring stick because that's what it is. The 6.5 140 is the king. So our factory match ammo is going to have 6.1 foot-pounds of recoil. I factored all this with an 18-pound gun, obviously for like a PRS style gun. An 18-pound gun, 6.1 foot-pounds of recoil. At 500 yards, you've got 51.6 inches of drop, and that's 2.9 mils. 13.5 inches of wind, or 0.8 of a mil. If you go to the 6 Creed, you're going to pick up some speed. That one, you're down to 4.9 foot-pounds of recoil. So like you talked about, you get that recoil reduction. Your drop, 43.7 inches, 2.4 mils. You're half a mil flatter to 500 yards. That's a pretty good advantage. The wind, 0.8 of a mil. So you're kind of tit for tat with wind, but you're flatter. So if you jump over to the 25 Creedmoor, again, this is factory ammo, our 134 grain ELD match doing 2,800. It's 5.9 foot-pounds of recoil, so a very, very slight advantage over the 6.5. I mean, we're talking a couple tenths of a foot-pound. Only 1 foot-pound more than a 6 Creedmoor, but it's 47.8 inches of drop, which is 2.7 mils, and 12.9 inches of wind. Now that rounds up to 0.8 of a mil, or 0.8 of a mil. But there you have that Goldilocks. You have the flattest trajectory is the 6. The worst trajectory is 6.5. You have the 25 right in the middle. I think what really shows this, though, is when you move to 1,000. And you look at 1,000 yards. Of those cartridges I just mentioned, the 6 Creedmoor has the worst wind deflection. That's 71 inches, 2 mils. 6.5, 65 inches, 65.6 rather, 1.8 mils. And the 25 has 60 inches of wind, 1.7 mils. So you have a trajectory that's right in the middle. You have recoil right in the middle, but you have the best wind characteristics of all 3 of them.
Yeah, which is the hard part, right? All of us can build a good ballistic profile and get our elevation right as long as our ranges are correct, right?
Right.
Which was also something that was considered early on in the PRS was we didn't have the availability of good rangefinders, so your range variation was off a little bit, so we wanted that flatter shooting 6mm. But now, just what you said, you're a tenth better at 1,000 yards with the 6.5 Creedmoor, and as a top-level competitor, how many times do you miss a target by just a tenth? It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
It may only equate to 1 or 2 shots per match, but that's 1 or 2 shots per match, which, like you said earlier, may be the separation between first and
second. Yeah. That's impressive. And the win being the huge one. I did this also, and I bring it up last. I ran numbers for a 6 arc, which a lot of us are running 6 arcs here in the shop, or 6 dasher. They run about the same. At 1,000 yards, you're at 67 inches of wind, 1.9 mils. So you're 0.2 of a mil at a disadvantage compared to a 25 Creedmoor or a 25 caliber in general. This was with our 134 ELD match. Important note, we got an A-tip that makes that 134 ELD match, that's kid stuff. That 138 A-tip is
it's
an
no
absolute juggernaut. So I wanted to take this brief rabbit hole quick just to highlight to the listener that is the 25 caliber craze that's going on in the 25 Creedmoor, is it a revolutionary match-winning product? Revolutionary might be an overstatement because it's in the minutia, but when you're trying to get every last impact, you'll get more of them shooting a 25 over anything else.
Yeah, just by the numbers.
Yep, and
statistically,
numbers don't lie. That's interesting. So we have the 131 Blackjack that really kind of, before we were recording, I mentioned it hosted the party. Hey, there's a 25 cal party and I'm hosting it, and it got the ball rolling. And then I don't know if we were reluctant, but Jayden, Joe, talk to us a little bit about why we didn't dive into the 25 cal world head first right out of the gate. Was it not a good time to launch a new bullet? We generally don't launch bullets that are reload or hand load only, because we didn't come out with that 134 and 138 till just recently here.
Yeah. I don't know, Joe.
I know on the ammunition and cartridge case side, we're building 6 and 6 Creedmoor, lots of them. Tons of, right? And this case is the same size. It runs on the same line, same tooling, same machine. So a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, for us to launch this back, it'd be great. Here's a 25, by the way. We already running full. We can't.
Yeah,
we're back ordered. We're back ordered anyway.
Yeah, it didn't have the capacity.
Exactly. So all it would have done was upset people. I mean, it's not. Here's this new thing. I want that, and you can't even buy it.
That's true.
So that was one reason on the cartridge cases and supporting, because that's part of supporting the cartridges: cases, ammo, bullets, everything.
Okay.
So, and I know some of it when we looked at it. I mean, we're looking at a broad scope of application, right? So who does this all appeal to? And we ran all that stuff. You got a 6.5 Creedmoor that does hunting and all this other stuff, does it really well, right? So, that's one reason why we looked at we didn't launch it right away, right?
Hornady Backcountry Defense Ammunition. For those backcountry encounters when a reliable round can be a lifesaver. Backcountry Defense Ammunition is loaded with DGH bullets that feature a protected point that locks the bullet nose to the core, providing maximum penetration while limiting deflection. Stay at the top of the food chain with Backcountry Defense Ammunition from Hornady.
Okay, so we've kind of sat on that for a while. Austin, when did you just make a conversion from, all right, I know your crew down in Oklahoma, everybody was running a 6 dasher.
Yeah.
Everybody with a 110 A-tip. When did you decide, hey, I'm gonna start looking at going into this 25 cal world?
Well, so I had a 25 cal pretty early on. I had a 25 by 47, was running the 131 Blackjacks. Gave up on that pretty early on because bullet availability wasn't there. You couldn't get them.
Was that with your old original
Yes.
barrel that you had that you showed me, the old one?
Yeah, I'll get to that. So it was 6 dasher with 110s, right? That was winning everywhere. That was easy. It was just the easy button, so easy to reload
with it.
Yeah. It was consistent all the time. You started seeing this swing of guys running. Really, it was whenever the really heavy for caliber 6.5s came out. You saw this swing of guys go over to 6.5s for the efficiency of it.
Yeah.
It kind of came to a point where there was certain times and certain matches where it didn't really matter if you spotted your shot or not because the bullet was so efficient it was just going to hit the target. Whether it hit the center or not, it didn't really matter. It was just, you're going to shoot a follow-up shot even if there's a little 2 or 3 mile an hour wind switch. It's pretty much going to hit the same spot, right? but you had to deal with the recoil from a 6.5, which is in our world is a little bit more challenging to see your shorter range shots, and for sure to see where you're hitting plate.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I kind of made the switch, I think it was Joe had said somebody had said something about a 25 cal, and I was like, well, I happen to have an old 25x47 barrel laying in my reloading room floor.
That's exactly what you told me.
From the blackjack time. He goes, oh, well, we're messing around with these new bullets. Like, would you want to try them? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, secret squirrel stuff.
Yeah, I got everything here. Let's try them out. So Joe sent them to me. Originally, they were a 135 A-tip.
Mm-hmm.
Got them and shot them, and I was like, how many of these can you send me? These things are awesome. How many of these can I get? I laid down. I like to shoot a lot of groups at my range. I got a target at 665 yards. I feel like that's a really good mid-range, a very average shot for us that I can shoot. And if my rifle will group there, I'm really happy. And so I laid down. I think I shot a 9-shot group that you could have covered with the base of a pop can.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to drive out there and take a picture of that. Took a picture of that to Joe and sent it to him. I was like, we got something here. So then I got some of those, took them out that first year. I think very first match I ever shot him was Clay's match.
When the wind was blowing that year.
The wind was blowing 35 or something like
winds,
that. Yeah. Got second place, turned around. The next match I got third place, and then the next match I won, and then won the Hornady match actually with the 25-47 and the 135 A-tips.
How about that?
Out in Utah. So that's whenever I started picking them up. And I realized whenever I was shooting, I was like, man, I feel like I have the ballistic advantage that I would have as a 6.5 with less recoil.
Yeah.
Right. The way it's set up on that is if you just basically drew a line in between a dasher and a 6.5, the 25 was even felt a little bit more on the dasher side as far as recoil.
Well, and I ran these numbers here with a 140.
With a 140,
bullet.
yeah, and I was running a 153.
Yep.
So yeah, it'd be a little bit different.
It would be significantly different for sure.
And that that kind of got me a passion for the 25, and I was like, man, because now I feel like I can shoot a non-windy match, a positional match, a prone match. It doesn't really matter what match you go to. You've got this kind of do-it-all bullet, do-it-all combination of this 25 cal running in these mid speeds. I was running around 2750, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not pushing it hard, but it runs good. It's super consistent. And now, shooting positional, I can spot my shot. Shooting prone, I was able to spot my shots. You got a little bit bigger bullet with a little bit more energy, so some of the bigger targets at distance would make the reaction happen a little bit better. And so now I'm sitting here looking, and I'm like, man, I can see exactly where I'm hitting plate. I can make these micro corrections to get to center, and I'm seeing it all with this 25 cal.
That's awesome, and I think there's something to be said there. You talked about not standing on them, right? Doing 2750, and we saw that wave of 6.5 SOM, and we're gonna 6.5 PRC. We're gonna stand on these 6.5 as hard as we can.
When I very first started, I was running a 6x47 with 105s at like 3150.
Yeah,
right? Just standing on it. That was the thing you had to run. But yeah, over the years we've learned that you don't need to run fast. I mean, even dashers and everything we've slowed down because the name of the game is consistency, right? You want the bullet to hit the same spot every time, because if it's not, and you're not able to get a full weekend worth out of your gun before something's changing, then it doesn't do you any good.
Yep.
So yeah, to me that this cartridge, that 27 to 2750 and that high efficiency bullet just Cadillacs, right? You're not running any pressure. You're just kind of coasting along. The recoil impulse is really nice.
Yep.
And honestly, that little bit slower speed, you have a little bit more time of flight to actually kind of recover and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Versus running it fast.
I feel like me, the top half of the bottom third kind of shooter, I noticed that going from a 6 Creedmoor to a 6 arc, it was like somebody put this thing in slow motion.
Yeah.
I felt like I could see that bullet the moment it exited the muzzle, all the way down range and exactly where it hit on the plate. And then you can make those micro corrections like you said.
Yeah, that's right, because that's just it. If you're hitting the edge of a plate all the time, eventually you're going to slip one, right? Everything has a cone of accuracy anyway. So you want to try to get that cone of accuracy as centered as you can. And then any other wind switches that happens, it's just your mathematical odds.
Yeah.
If your cone of accuracy is in the center of a target, your mathematical odds of hitting that target every time are a lot higher than if you're on one edge or the other and not seeing it.
Right. So from your guys' standpoint, going on the bullet design, you get these 135s. I'm not sure who laid that bullet out, Joe, if that was you or Ryan or whoever laid that bullet out. You make these bullets, probably don't tell a whole bunch of people. run out a few thousand of them.
We didn't tell anybody about those. Like we made a typical Hornady Black Ops, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Well, we
So
did
that's
a bunch of radar work then too,
We did
because we made
a bunch of
we
those.
made a couple weights of ELDMs and a couple weights of A-tips, and we were doing a bunch of radar work with those before. That would be around the
That-
time you got some.
Well, that was pre Austin. We did all of our stuff pre, but then we did all that, and you're like, well, we think this one is the best. That's when I got a hold of him. I'm like, hey, do you have any way to like just help us out, like under
Do
the
some
radar?
testing for
Could
us.
you just could you do some shooting? Oh yeah, send them on down. And then the only thing you touched on there were 135s. Then you came back and said, is there any way? Because it came to when all the dust settled, I'm like, all right, what do you want? Because we can do this 135, 136, 137, 138, 134. We've done all of this testing. And you said, well, I'd like them a touch heavier.
Yeah.
So can you tell any difference? I mean, you and I have talked about it, but when you shoot 130, the original 135s over the new, 138s.
Like BC wise,
No, when you shoot them, like how?
No, not really. They shoot pretty much identical. As far as where they tuned out and where they wanted to run, it was just a touch slower. But,
Mhm.
but other than that, no.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead, Jayden.
One really important thing that Austin kind of alluded to there was there was a subset of shooters, and probably even at the high level, that would bounce back and forth between two systems depending on the match. So
Right.
you're on an East Coast positional match. You're going to run a six dasher, right? Light recoil. I'm not too worried about winds, but you're out at the Hornady PRC match and the wind's whipping and you go heavy 6.5. And I think we've all learned from the precision rifle sports that you're way better off picking one system and using that all the time. So you're as proficient as possible with that one than bouncing between multiple.
Yep.
And this gives you that.
Yeah, especially for the slightly above average shooter that like that group of shooters is going to benefit the most, or the average shooter, let's say, you're going to benefit the most from picking one and sticking with it. At the elite levels of competition, like Austin, and I'm thinking of Clay Blackheader. I know Clay ran a dasher for a long time with 110 A-tips, came to the Hornady PRC, shooting 6.5 153s at 2650, and he cleaned house. But I would have to agree, Jayden, where the hefty majority of shooters, 95+% of the shooters, just pick one and stick with it. And you're going to
Wear out some barrels, which
Yeah.
I think is where the 25 really falls in. Because if you want to pick one,
Mhm.
why not pick a really good one from the start, right?
Yeah.
And start
Yeah.
wearing out barrels.
That's exactly right.
yeah, that'd be a great one to learn because same deal is it's lighter recoiling, but you have the efficiency, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. I always tell a lot of people in our classes and stuff that the BR-based cartridges are the easiest, right? They're the easiest to be more fundamentally sound. You can get away with a little bit more. It's less recoil, but they're not the most efficient, right? As far as if you want to get the best ballistics out of it. And so now there's going to be an option for that.
Yeah, and you kind of married to hand loading or buying custom hand loaded ammo for the dashers or the BR variants. So we get to this spot where we've made bullets as light as 125 grains in 25 cal to 138 grains between ELD match and A-tips, and we go to Jason Hornady, new products meeting. Jason, we've got some top shelf 25 caliber options. There's beginning to be more of a market for these. Can we launch them as a new product? And I remember him saying, pick one.
Just like that, too.
Yeah.
Are you serious? Pick one. Come on.
Yeah, it was like, we got an A-tip, we got an ELD match, let's go. And he said, pick one. So internally, there was a lot of conversation, and I think what it boiled down to was, the ELD match is a premium bullet. It's an awesome bullet. You win matches with that bullet, and they're going to cost you 40 cents a pop versus an A-tip, which is, that's a 80 or 90 cent bullet. So we thought that the ELD match would be a bigger net, right, to catch more fish. And as it were, it did well. I remember Jason saying, I think you'll be lucky to sell 100,000 bullets.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And the first run we made, the lots, was 300,000 of them.
Yeah.
And we've been out of those for a long time.
Yeah.
So those shot great. I shot a lot of those. I got those in, and I didn't want to waste all the A-tips because we had such a limited run of those.
Yep.
And so I broke a barrel in and started shooting the 134s. I was like, golly, I just shoot these.
Yeah.
They shot great.
It's a great bullet. And they did so well, in fact, that the next year we were able to strong arm Jason into another 25 cal product. And that was that original 135 A-tip just beefed up a little bit. So it's 138 grain. And what's remarkable about that bullet is ballistically, it is almost identical to shooting a 147 6.5. It's almost as good as our 153 A10.
Almost as exactly.
Yeah,
it's almost
right
a
there.
153.
The high-speed 3-in-1 power case trimmer keeps up with your need for speed, trimming, chamfering, and deburring 25 cases a minute. Built to handle a rush without compromising on precision. The ultimate tool for high-volume loaders. Set trim length quickly with macro adjustments and fine-tune with the Click Adjust micro dial. The high-speed 3-in-1 power case trimmer from Hornady.
When you start looking at that level of performance, again, with the slight reduction in recoil, the better wind characteristics, and a trajectory that is in the middle between a hot rod 6 and a 6.5. But Austin, you mentioned it. It's no problem. You dial in Ford off, your bullet drop is pretty well dialed in. That's not variable at this point. It's just the wind.
The wind's the hard part. And if you can find a way, to cheat the wind, or at least to get an advantage on wind, especially when you're being ultra competitive, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Really
Well, and even not being ultra competitive, again, me.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
there's a lot of us in
anybody.
the top half of the bottom third that the more impacts I get, the better I shoot, right? I shoot a couple matches a year anymore. I don't do much of this. But if I hit more targets, it's more fun. It's easier to have fun when you're hitting what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
And any advantage I can get, I definitely need.
Well, and don't you think, Austin, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I'm just going to pick on a 153. 138 falls in the exact same category. The target's past 600-700 yards. It is easier for me, because I don't see everything as good as you guys do. It's easier for me to shoot those heavy, ultra efficient bullets and get a second round hit when I don't see everything. I can send the same shot, and more than likely, if I hit the plate the first time, I'm going to hit that plate the second time.
Yeah.
It might not be center.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm going to hit it versus my little 6 mil.
Yeah, what we saw on it was just what you said out there, that 700-800 yard range is your little wind variability, your little wind switches just didn't move the bullet. Doesn't move the bullet very much, right? Ballistically, it shows it. It shows that it is better at wind. And then you could look at, okay, how much does it change from a 10 mile an hour to a 15 mile an hour over the two bullets, right?
How sensitive is it?
How sensitive is it? And they're very forgiving on that. And just like he said, you shoot a target, you're like, I'm not sure if I know the plate rocked, but I don't know if I was left side or right side. I'm just going to send it again and hit it in the same spot.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's great. So we've got this flood of 25 cals coming because, again, Blackjack hosted the party, but then a lot of other people showed up to the party, and we've been, moving a lot of bullets in 25 caliber. And then we spent time talking about that. Let's transition now to the 25 Creedmoor specifically, because yes, the 25 in general, there's a lot of benefit there. Well, what was the deciding factors to say, all right, this cartridge has existed for a long time. It was necked down from 6.5 immediately. Well, necked down from 30, I bet, from when it was a 30 TC.
Yeah.
I guarantee, there's a 250 Hillbilly and all these. But in its current state, what were those actions that happened that were like, okay, this makes sense to make a SAMI approved, accepted cartridge?
Well, from my standpoint, it was getting the cartridge and chamber set so we didn't have another 6.5 284 debacle within the SAMI organization, and then trying to bring a cartridge, get it standardized, because that's all SAMI is a standardization so everybody has access to the specs. To get the 25 Creedmoor established in there so we had a standard to go by. Otherwise, we've got Jayden's version and Austin's version and Seth's version and Joe's version, and they all vary a little bit.
Yep.
And after that happens for so many years or months or whatever, it's really hard to rewind that clock and get a standard. Yeah. Yes.
And that might be one of the things with like a 6-dasher not being taken to SAMI is there's 18 different reamers available. Another good example of that, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up, was in the 6mm Creedmoor. How long did the 6 Creedmoor exist in some wildcat fashion, which was several years, for a long time. When it was taken to SAMI and those dimensions and tolerances were accepted, guns were built and ammo was made. And one particular gun company bought reamers from a particular reamer manufacturer that had a short throat by 40 thou. Had 140 thou throat, and the SAMI number is about 180. And factory ammo was jamming that bullet.
Yeah.
And that was a problem. And did that problem get rectified? Yes, and that's a thing of the past. However, it is a potential hazard for the end user, and all the end user did was go to the store and buy a factory rifle with factory ammo.
Correct.
And you need those two things to jive.
And we wanted to head that off right away.
Yeah.
All right. So
the other thing we got into with kind of selecting on Creedmoor itself was we messed around with other cartridge designs. We did
let's hear it.
We did a 25, a 6.5 PRC neck down to 25.
Yeah, buddy.
And you want to talk about red hot speed? You can get all you want.
I'm all about it.
But it was too much. Like you would have to, from a maintenance standpoint, you had to like stay on top of that barrel to keep it from doing wonky stuff. So it was too much. Like you couldn't shoot a 200 round match with that thing without things migrating on you. So
okay. But we did try that. We've got several barrels. Man behind the camera's got one.
Yeah.
Got 2 barrels, no less.
Yeah. So we dabbled with that.
Yep.
And then we dabbled with the shorter end of stuff, smaller cartridge case capacity. And with the Creedmoor itself, you're obviously has PRS application, right?
Absolutely.
But you kind of have the other side of the field rifle competition of like NRL Hunter, which has a different set of rules around it. And there's a power factor that you have to be able to meet for the majority of those divisions.
Mm-hmm.
And the smaller cartridge case capacity, like a 47 base case or any of those,
GT,
you're not going to get there. Not in a safe pressure realm. It's not going to happen. With the 25 Creed, you're like just edging in to where you can meet power factor at safe pressures for NRL Hunter as well. So that kind of gives the cartridge a little bit of a dual purpose.
Yeah, you got some duality there. Not to mention for the sportsman, which we'll talk about, you have just a little more fuel tank to get a hunting bullet going at a decent speed.
And then we're also the guys from Alpha were just really great about, hey, here's what we've been, because they were making reamers, they were making cases already, and those guys were super cool about, because I just talked to them, I'm like, hey man, we're going to standardize this, would you mind sharing, helping us out? And they were just a great bunch of guys, like, yep, here's what we're doing, and we're like, all right, there we go.
Yep, and that was really helpful, because we were talking about going with a different throat dimension, and they encouraged us, hey, here's the throat dimension that we've been making, that this is all of the reamers we've made have been made to this spec. Why not just make that the standard?
Yep.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially when it's the least common denominator.
Yep.
A guy like Austin wants to do something a little different. Guess what? He's material safe. He can just throat it or do whatever. Mm-hmm. You're good. So, yeah.
Right. So, we didn't call this out specifically, and so if Jason Hornady does listen to this, I'm not sorry, because this is just reality. He is not the biggest 25 caliber fan. So
no, he's not.
So for the listener, just know that all of this has been a slight uphill battle, although it's not been a battle because he's not putting up a fight. There's just a lot of things that happen maybe in the Black Ops part of Hornady that we just present to him as a finished product, which is a good way to do things. I want to hear about how approaching him with, we're doing a 25 Creedmoor as a cartridge. It's SAMI accepted already. We're going to do factory ammo. We want to do factory ammo. What are your thoughts? Because obviously he's got the veto authority to be like, no.
Well, we make the attributes just look really, really good. There's no other 25 with a fast twist, right? You can shoot all these bullets. People will buy this. Austin's winning matches with 25.
And all of that's true. I mean, there's such a giant hole in 25 cal cartridges. None of them are modernized to the point you guys made earlier. They're all 10 twist barrels. They're all stumpy bullets, that you could have designed with, I'm sure, a hammer and a ruler in 1972. But we've seen an obvious track of success of doing that with all the other cartridges we've done in the last 20 years. Hey, let's modernize this thing. Let's make it unlimited. Let's make it so any guy can do anything he wants with it. Hunt, compete, recreationally shoot, checks all those boxes.
And can go to the store and buy ammo.
Absolutely.
Go buy ammo.
Yeah. That's a big part of it. Just like you said on the NRL Hunter side of it, they have a deal where you can, you don't have to meet power factor with factory ammo.
If you're shooting factory.
So now you have the option to have a highly efficient light recoiling rifle in NRL Hunter that you can go buy factory ammo for.
Yep. That means a lot. So you've got 134 grain ELD match doing 2,800 feet per second. That's going to be on the shelf, ready to go. You can't ask for much more than that. You can get some factory rifle support, although it's really small right now. Horizon Firearms comes to mind. You can buy a Horizon 25 Creedmoor right off the shelf. But it just goes to show you in the consumer world how many people don't care if you can have a factory rifle on the shelf or not. I mean, building rifles has never been easier than it is right now. And on the rifle barrel side, I'm sure you're seeing that.
Oh yeah, we rifle a ton of 25 cal barrels. It is, especially in the competition side, it's hot. And in the hunting side, we're building a ton of the lighter weight hunting type contour barrels. A lot of the NRL hunter guys are going to 25 cals.
And for all those advantages that we said, now are those huge advantages at 1,000 yards, 6 inches of wind? I don't know. If you miss a target by 5 inches, that 6 inches would have been nice.
If Austin doesn't get an impact and he gets second place, it was a big.
Think of it as like the big deer that you've got at 500 yards, 400 yards, or whatever, and you've got a 4 or 5 inch variance there. That's a kill shot versus a gut shot.
Yep,
that's true.
That's very true. Which brings us to another good point. Great segue, Austin. We were going to launch this with just a match load, 134 grain ELD match. And we talked about it internally a little bit. I personally went to Jason's office and sat down and said, Jason, I really think if we're going to launch a new cartridge, we need to show the rifle builders out there that we're going to support it. And an ELD match load and a precision hunter load would really complement each other nicely and give the consumer some options and show that, hey, we're here to support this cartridge. Isn't just one that we sent to Sammy and got it all accepted and then just, okay, yeah, we've got a match load. We're here for everybody.
I think Seth just wanted a hunting load because he had a trip or something he was going to hunt with 25.
Yeah. Well, I did because I had one coming up.
Yeah.
Also, it was you.
No. Blame Seth, but
you can't blame me on a. He's not wrong entirely.
Because it was Seth's hunt. I went on Seth's hunt, so this is Seth's fault.
No,
it is. I knew it was.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I still. Yeah.
Well, first of all, we need to clear things. It wasn't my hunt. As the communications manager, I do host and plan and do the logistics for a lot of media events and a lot of media hunts. Just because I planned this hunt, I had no intentions of going because it interfered with another event.
No, that's not. He called me. He's like, This is the hunt of a lifetime. I really wanted to go. I can't make it. I have scheduling conflicts. Is there any way that you could go kill a nice Wyoming buck with a 25 cal?
Yep.
In an ELDX. And I said, you know what, Seth? I sure can. I got one sitting here.
We just got done with the
orange. Yeah. So the bullet doesn't exist yet, but it does.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get to that in just one moment. In truth, though, everybody knows that listen to the podcast. My first cartridge was a 257 Roberts. So my kids, like it or not, you're getting a 25 cal. So my oldest is old enough to hunt this next year. So I'm building him a rifle. The only thing was, am I going to build him a 257 Roberts? Or, well, how convenient, 25 Creedmoor.
Yeah.
So he's getting a 25 Creedmoor.
That's pretty cool, though.
Got that in the works, yep.
When I was a kid, my first rifle I owned was a 30-06. And as a little kid, it sucked to shoot. And I didn't shoot it well.
Yeah,
so then what I did, I sold it and got a 25-06.
There you go.
So not my first deer, but some of my first deer and my first coyote was a 25-06.
There's something to love about it. So, yes, there's a little bit of selfish need and desire for the precision hunter load so I could just have my kids shoot factory ammo. However, Jayden, you mentioned talking about that hunt in November. I didn't tell you to shoot 25. You elected to shoot 25.
I did. I actually asked if I could because I was shooting something that doesn't exist and there was going to be some media folks there.
Yes.
And I wanted to gauge your comfort level.
Let's talk about that bullet specifically, maybe some other iterations of that bullet that came to be, and then what it ended up being.
Yeah, so I think we messed with some lighter weight 120 class ELDXs and wanted them a little bit heavier. The bullet that I tested and ended up hunting with in Wyoming was a 128 grain. And I've talked about it, I think, on the show before, but kind of my practice or prep type of system, right? I go out and I kind of get hit probability based numbers on steel targets at different ranges and set my limits there, prone off a tripod, sitting off a long bipod, all that stuff. And I was on paper thinking, okay, yeah, I'm getting a little bit more wind advantage with this. It's still a light rifle, so you're going to have a little bit of recoil, but nothing too bad. But how much different is it going to be than, say, a 6.5 or something?
Right.
I was pretty pleasantly surprised with it. I mean, I had no qualms from like a capability standpoint. Like I could, under variable conditions, make a shot on a whitetail out to 600 all day long with it. I wasn't really concerned. Ended up shooting a buck at, I don't know, it was like 200 or 300, somewhere in that realm. Bullet worked awesome. I recovered him about 40 yards later.
Perfect.
Shot a coyote too.
Yeah. How far was that?
1280. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was a dog that was, I think he was running away, and I bailed out, maybe off the bed of a flatbed. I don't know. And yeah, it stoned him right where he stood.
Yeah.
So.
I love Wyoming.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Look at this. 100 free bullets when I buy these select Hornady reloading tools. Wow, 500 free bullets with certain Hornady reloading presses and kits. Well, what do they have? Let's get loaded.
There's no better time to stock your reloading bench. Choose from the most durable, precise, and convenient tools on the market and receive free bullets to get you loaded. Visit Hornady.com for further details.
Next time we get loaded, I'm buying.
That's a great point you brought up, that you were capable of taking those 500-600 yard shots should you need to, and with that 128 grain ELDX at 500 yards, it's got almost 1,300 foot-pounds of energy and over 2,100 feet per second of retained velocity. So, I mean that is the meat and potatoes of where you want a bullet to live.
Oh, absolutely.
If you can impact north of 2,000 feet per second, and the ELDX will expand down to 1,600, but there's just something about 2,000 to maybe 2,500 feet per second of impact speed with a lead core bullet that is just, that's the money zone.
They
It
work
just works.
really good there.
Yep. So you get the wind advantage, low recoil, shooting off a tripod, something like that. So although it isn't the velocity hog like a 25-06 or even a 25 PRC, the 6.5 neck down, it's still plenty of cartridge for the sportsman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as a give and take, you start getting to that velocity hog, and then you got more recoil and stuff. Just like you said a while ago, this would be a great round for kids.
Oh yeah.
A light gun, your sub 10-pound gun that you would be willing to carry on long hunts.
Yep.
Yeah, put a shorter barrel on it, put a can on it.
Shorter barrel, shorter suppressor. You're only cooking off 42 grains of propellant, versus like we talked about necking down the 6.5. Now you're burning nearly 60 grains of propellant. Try to do that in a 20-inch barrel with a 5-inch can, and there's just a lot of ejecta going on, and yeah, it's a lot. So for the sportsman, for the antelope hunter out there on the prairie,
it'd be a great antelope gun.
Yeah,
yeah,
deer, stuff like that. It's just going to be. Is it super revolutionary? No, but it is it's just past the click. And in the words of Spinal Tap, it goes to 11. It's just one more. So there's a lot to be excited about in the 25 Creedmoor world. The factory ammo support, I'm confident we'll see some more factory rifles available. It's easy to build a gun now with all these custom actions that will guarantee headspace. You can get a pre-fit barrel, screw one together. It's a standard short action, so any of your magazines, your regular short action rifles, they're all going to work, and it's balanced and consistent. You mentioned the maintenance thing. We've learned in the PRC line of cartridges that the average consumer doesn't maintain barrels super nicely. And then we've also learned that in the precision rifle community, they don't maintain barrels largely at all. So having a maintenance or low maintenance cartridge is, although it might not be the biggest advantage on paper, in practicality for the end user, it can be a big advantage.
It always works for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's SAMI accepted already, so the specs are already they're all out there and established, which will help the gun. Guys wants guns and all this. The specs are already there.
We should touch on that 7.5-inch twist rate. That's the SAMI recommended twist.
That is correct.
7.5 inches of twist, and then that's the standard Creedmoor 2.825 max overall length. 62,000
473 bolt face.
It's everything's standard.
Yes.
I just thought of this. I wanted to go back and touch on this before we wrap this thing up. There has been some contention internally about the bullet weight of the ELDX, of just wanting simply a heavier bullet. There's some other bullets that are touted as hunting bullets on the market that are a little bit heavier, and sometimes the average consumer might want the heaviest option. One thing with that 128 that I want you guys to touch on is ballistically, it does not get any better. Like, we can't make that bullet heavier without making the ogive fuller and shorter and actually sacrificing ballistics. Let's talk about why the 128 is a 128 and not a 133 or something along those lines.
You want that bullet design to have controlled expansion under the velocities that it's designed to impact at. And there's a certain amount of jacket thickness that you need to do that. Once your jackets get so thin, you lose the controllability, contribution of that copper jacket to controlling the rate of the mushrooming of the bullet and the control that it has to stay together and not jacket core separate. And I think people wanting to go to the heavier stuff, maybe they're stuck in the old energy based, if I just have more energy, I'll kill better, kind of dichotomy of understanding. And that's simply not true. It's way more complex than that on how you effectively take an animal. But that's the reason why does it weigh 128 and not over 130 like some of the other bullets on the market? That's because the jacket is specifically designed for controlled expansion.
And when like we've said on this podcast many other times, when we design bullets, cartridges, cases, whatever, we will design for the performance first. So whether it's terminal performance, ballistics, whatever it is, we design for all the performance characteristics and the shape that we need. The weight will be what it's going to be. In other words, we want the bullet to work and work every time at the velocities, and the weight it's a byproduct of the performance.
Excellent. Couldn't have said it better myself. We actually just recently released a podcast about why a bullet ends up weighing what it weighs. And there's a lot of reasons. And in this case, it's simply we want the most ballistically efficient shape we can get with a jacket purposefully built to help control the expansion in the velocity regime where this bullet's going to live.
Absolutely.
And if you wanted to, the bullet, quite frankly, is almost as long, if not as long, as the 134.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. It's
absolutely that.
Yeah. So you get this super long ogive. And would you rather have the wind cutting capabilities or 3 grains of lead?
I'll take the wind and expansion and all of that performance before I would take 3 grains of lead.
Right. Awesome, guys. Well, the 25 Creedmoor, I'm confident it'll be another success. I don't know if it's ever going to be a 6.5 Creedmoor, which, kind of took over the world. But in the areas where this cartridge lives, it's going to be awesome for the match shooter, for the NRL hunter competitor, great for the sportsman. And also, I think there's a big segment of people that just like something a little different.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the quarter bore, right?
Yeah,
it's the catchy quarter bore.
That's what you've said for years.
It's got a 1/4-inch hole in my heart ever since I hung up my 257 Roberts, and now it's full. Yeah. Got the 25 Creedmoor. So all that aside, internally, on a personal note, what do you guys got going on for the 25 Creedmoor? Are you going to be shooting it in any matches? You got any hunts coming up you're going to be using it on? What's going on in the world of 25 Creedmoor for you guys?
I'm going to take it to NRL Hunter because last year I shot factory rifle division shooting 6.5 Creed with the 100 grain VTs. I was shooting factory ammo, factory division. To your point, I didn't have to make power factor. And that was great, but it was too fast for the shorter targets. That 100 VT, it was a 26-inch Browning X-Bolt doing
all of it,
like 50 foot under the max at 3150, I think is there, or 3200.
3200 is book, yeah.
It was right there, so on a 300-yard target off a tree branch, even though it's a 100 grain bullet out of a 6.5 Creed, it was still a struggle to see it. But especially after the train up for that hunt last fall and being on that hunt, this is way more applicable for NRL Hunter.
Right on.
That'll be fun.
Joe, you're a tactical shooter in the PRS. You're making it rain out there. What are you doing for 25?
So I have the only thing that I would be doing with it would be hunting. Obviously, I have a heavy match barrel because I did a bunch of the testing early on. But mine would be more, and not even me. I don't even get hunting anymore. I have 4 kids that like to hunt. So how about my kids will be hunting with a 25?
All right. Austin, what do you got spooled up?
Yeah, so I got a couple matches coming up. We're going to shoot Box Canyon. I'm planning on shooting the 25 Creed. And then I've got an NRL Hunter in Texas at the end of April that I'll be shooting the 25 Creed. And then,
all right.
And then it'll pretty much go in my, it'll go in my arsenal of it'll go in the rotation.
Yep.
I still shoot a 6mm a little bit. I'll still shoot the 6.5 a little bit. I shoot the 25. It's nice for me to have a little bit of everything chambered up so I can keep all my product tested and keep testing going on. So, but yeah, we're going to shoot. There'll be several matches this year. I shoot a 25 Creed in.
I like it. Not only do I have a rifle build in process for my son, the only thing I haven't bought is the action. That's just because I've been dragging my feet and lazy about it. But I got the barrel, the stock, everything's ready to go. Just need to get the action. I have an upcoming epic adventure type hunt that I'm going on to New Zealand and I'll be sporting a 25 Creedmoor as well. Yep. So seemed like a natural fit. 2025, a 25.
You need to have your son shoot a deer in 2025 with a 25. Like how cool would that be someday?
Yeah,
I mean, that'd be pretty neat.
Yep. I still have half of mine to load a 117 Spire point in there because that was what.
Of course you do.
That's what I shot.
You're gonna
my
have
first
to learn,
with.
boy. You gotta start with the old tools.
I'll do that with my kid this year. He was begging to shoot a deer last year, and he wasn't quite ready. So we've been playing with the 22 with a scope on it and getting him to find the target, and he's going to be ready this year.
That is awesome.
We're going to shoot a deer with a 25.
I like it. Well, I'll send you a photo when we do. Please do the same.
There we go.
We're excited. Awesome, guys. Well, I don't have anything else. I feel like we nailed everything about, kind of the wave of 25 caliber and how that really started just out of necessity where, like Jayden mentioned, there was a pendulum. It was everybody was shooting 308s. Then everybody was shooting a 6.5. And then everybody was shooting a 6.5 at Mock Jesus. And then everybody swung back to the 6 millimeter at Mock
7 millimeters were mixed in there too.
Yeah,
the 280, 284
that's
athlete, 284
right,
Haynes was a
there.
big deal, like 2012, 2013, something like that.
Yep.
There's a big swing in that.
Yeah, and then the pendulum has kind of settled a little bit with modest velocities and how can we maximize our wind, and that it really is a 25 at a modest velocity. That's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, guys. Well, I don't have anything else for you. I appreciate you carving out the time for this podcast. Austin, appreciate you coming up especially. Anything else for the listener?
Nope. You nailed it, Seth.
All right. Thanks, guys. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to this episode all about the 25 Creedmoor, our brand new launch, a 25 for 25. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one.